We will start in a few minutes. Just some housekeeping. Chiara, can you please give me some paper? Right, you should have received this document.
Questo foglio. This is the, here you will find instructions for the connection to the interpretation, simultaneous interpretation. You will need to download this voice box app, very small app, and then you can join the event, and here down here you will see the code of this event in particular, that will open for you the connection to the interpretation, to the interpreters. On the bottom right of the home page of the application, you will find the you can click on the logo to choose the languages you want to hear. Okay. Voice box. Okay. I will be glad to receive a feedback from the interpreters that can tell me if they can hear me. What is happening?
Il nome basta mettere il nostro, vero?
Sì, sì. Perché basta pure, visto che per la rendicontazione, vabbè, non devo capire, poi no, per attribuirla all'istituzione, però per l'app va bene così. È chiara?
Sì, adesso
perfetto.
Cosa vuoi che stavi chiedendo? Cosa vuoi che scriva? L'organizzazione?
Ho un IBAS per l'identificazione del... Our very best greetings to the friends that are connected from abroad and here around that cannot intervene in person. We already have here Professor Antonella Guida that will tell us the greetings of the rector and will also speak in her position of delegate to international relations of the department of DICEM, the department that is hosting us. Come? Hai scelto la lingua italiana, inglese? Are they? Do we have interpretation in Italian? No.
Ok, sì.
Ok.
Era per provare.
Sì, 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 sì. Okay. So, Antonella, would you mind speak a bit longer and we
Possiamo
start?
parlare.
Yeah, we started because also I will be glad you will have more room than.
Perfetto. Allora,
So let me give you the floor. Let me give the floor to Antonella Guida, Professor Antonella Guida. As I already told you about her role as an academic, as a member of the faculty of the University of Basilicata, but as we were just discussing, she will bring also a lot of experiences and competences in the specific field we are working on in thematic. So, Professor Guida, the floor is yours for an informal opening then when we will.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome all the delegates here in the room and all those connected. The rector of the faculty also welcomes you all, and Pro-Rector Mr. Michele Greco, in charge of international relations, also extends his welcome. I'm also the Deputy Director of the department, which is the only facility in this building of the University of Basilicata. So, on behalf of Professor Porcella, welcome again. And then I'm also the coordinator of the Department of Architecture, which is one of the degree courses that are taught here, and I'm also responsible for international mobility in our department. It is a great pleasure for me to open this conference. The main topic of this project has a lot to do with the city of Matera. I'm sure that Matera was a surprise for you all. It is a surprise also for those of us who live here. I think Matera is indeed the ideal place where we, as the Department of Architecture, can carry out our research projects. We hope that this is just the beginning of this project, and we hope it can generate a return, a positive return, and positive benefits for the city of Matera and all the places where you come from. I was talking with my colleague here earlier on, and I was saying that we should really focus on accessibility and mobility. And by the way, he had given me a book, which I will show you later, which provides an approach to the accessibility of public spaces, which is one of the main topics you'll be working on. As you've seen, Matera is not an easily accessible town, and I'm not referring only to accessibility for people with disabilities. I'm referring to everyone's accessibility. We are used to talking about universal design, design for all, which means designing a city and designing the spaces of a city that can be accessible to all. This does not only mean eliminating all sorts of barriers, it means allowing people to easily access and make the most of all parts of the city. Additionally, Basilicata is also carrying out specific activities with the so-called clusters, the regional and national clusters. These clusters work on the cultural and tourist enhancement of the places, the main tourist locations here in Basilicata. This cluster's name is already an example of our goals. So Basilicata Creativa, Creative Basilicata, is a clear example of this. There are 48 companies involved, because research cannot be carried out exclusively in research centers. We need local administrations and companies to be involved in research too. So we need to enhance tourist locations, and we also need to enhance local communities. This can be achieved if we work together with the companies working in the local communities and local areas. So companies need universities and vice versa. This synergy is essential to promote our local areas. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to have to go soon, but let me just say that this project is incredibly interesting and the research that has been carried out is beautiful. I'm so glad that this project has been created, and I'm very happy that there are so many delegates here. I hope that you'll be able to start from Matera to then develop a project that can bring benefits to all of your destinations. So, Professor, this is the book I'd like to give you. This book collects all the technical information, but aside from this, I think we can start working together on research. It will be a pleasure for me and for the Department of Architecture. Thanks again. I'll stay a bit longer, but then unfortunately I have a meeting, so I will have to leave you. I'm sorry about that. If I can, I'll come back later. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Guida. And thank you for your flexibility. We need to be flexible these days, as we all know. These are trying times, especially when it comes to holding meetings in person. We wanted this meeting to take place in person, and we need to thank our partners who've come here from Greece, Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia. So thank you for coming here. We really hope this is just the beginning of a series of meetings in person. Working online for cultural tourism is really an oxymoron. This is not something that we like doing. So should we wait for the mayor to arrive maybe? And then we can formally start the conference? So we really need to turn on the mics. I would also like to thank all of our partners individually for being here. If you have any questions about Matera, you're more than welcome to ask them. So if you need any clarifications or anything, if you have any remarks or any impression you would like to share, I know that you have walked around the town, you've visited the caves, so if there's anything you would like to say, you're more than welcome. Right, so I know that you have another meeting now, but still I hope we'll be able to meet again here later, possibly. There will also be a roundtable. It would be lovely to have you there. Is that right? Now, they're telling me that the systems are not working for the other meeting I have. Oh, right. I would have loved to be able to remain and listen to the conference, but unfortunately I can't. So we were saying these are very trying times, so we need to be flexible. And can you stay a bit longer? Sorry, Professor Guida. So I think we can start with the presentations and the introductions of the partners of the project, because we have a very tight agenda. This is because of the simultaneous interpreting and also because some partners need to leave the conference at a given time. So I think we can start with the second part of our meeting. We can have the partners' introductions, and then when the mayor comes, we will give him the floor for his welcome address. So now I will give the floor to Mr. Dimitris Karydis from Enterprise Greece, who's got the toughest time constraints to abide by. So both for those who have joined us online and for those who are here in person, I'd like to say that you should not worry. You will be able to have access to the recordings of the event. The recording will be published on the project's website later. Mr. Dimitris Karydis from Enterprise Greece is about to take the floor now. Enterprise Greece, as you may understand from the name, is responsible for promoting the industrial development. So Mr. Karydis, I'm sorry, I've just been informed that the mayor has arrived. The interpreter corrects himself. It was not industrial development, but territorial development. Right, so good afternoon to the mayor of Matera, who will now address the audience. I'd like to thank him because this is the second time that the mayor has kindly accepted to take part in one of the project's meetings. So I will be happy to give him the floor immediately.
I would like to welcome and greet everyone. For me, it's important to listen to the conference. The topic is very interesting because I'm also responsible for tourism, and I wanted to see what a perspective of shared tourism might look like regarding sustainability and valorizing the features of each territory. So my wish and my greeting is that all institutions can continue to collaborate with the university, which is a crossroads for competences and skills. So I wish you a fruitful day from the administration of Matera. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. You're more than welcome to sit here with us, or as you wish, says the speaker. Thank you, Mr. Mayor of Matera. For the first time, we've had the honor of having him for the June event when the Municipality of Matera was the only administration in Basilicata to the only stakeholder to participate. And I would like to remind this event because in that event we had a comprehensive approach of all our topics: sustainability, accessibility, and sustainability in its wider sense, that economic, social, and environmental. Because the municipality of Matera joins all these aspects, and it is a greatly endowed municipality from the point of view of cultural heritage, and it is one of the poorest areas, we have to say, without being shy or coy, and it is at the same time, one of the richest from an environmental point of view. With Professor Colonna this morning, we saw the complexity of the system, of the cultural system and nature system of the city of Matera. So thank you again, Mayor, and I hope we can stay with us for a few minutes. I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Dimitris for his presentation. Mr. Dimitris Karydis, you have the floor. He's going to present Enterprise Greece, which is an important. The role of this important stakeholder for Greece is to Enterprise Greece's relevance for our project will be presented. Please, Dimitris.
Thank you very much, Biagio.
Just a sign to go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our event. First of all, I would like to say thank you for the University of Basilicata for hosting us here, and also to Biagio for all the organization these 2 days, and to his team, especially Chiara and Paola, for all the hosting. Thank you again. My name, as Biagio said, is Dimitris Karydis. I'm representing the organization Enterprise Greece, which is a public organization in Greece, partner in the thematic project. And I will tell you a few words about the organization, the activities related to the subject of the thematic projects, the role in the project, and 2 words about our pilot action. So Enterprise Greece is the official agency of the Greek state under the auspices of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to promote investment in Greece, exports from Greece, and make Greece more attractive as an international business partner. That means that it provides a wide range of services to better assist investors, business partners, and business community, aiming to enhance, facilitate entrepreneurship in general. Furthermore, it provides a full spectrum of services related to international business relationships and to domestic business development for international markets. Please, Biagio. Concerning the role and the activities of Enterprise Greece related to the thematic projects, the organization attracts, promotes, and supports and retains investment in Greece in tourism sector, focuses on transforming the traditional sun and beach Greek tourism product into a number of higher value, more focused thematic tourism products, and participate as an exhibitor, organizing the International Pavilion, in the national pavilion, the Greek pavilion, in all major tourism international exhibitions. One more. Specifically, the role of Enterprise Greece in the thematic projects. I cannot see. No problem. Yeah. The role of Enterprise Greece in the thematic project is to inform and stimulate all interested parties in Greece about the project activities, especially stakeholders, develop in collaboration relevant methodologies and tools in favor of a networking-based, of course, thematic tourism ecosystem, sharing the knowledge on the design promotion of alternative, specialized and upgrading thematic tourism products and services at international level, and design and implement the pilot project. And a few words about the pilot project of Enterprise Greece. The acronym is Light Camera Action. The title of the project is Promoting Greece as a Film-Friendly Destination for International Productions. And as you can see, it related to film industry. The idea is to attract investments in Greece for audiovisual production, international broadcasting, and by this way retain sustainability, promotes different places in Greece, attract tourism in Greece.
Sorry.
Yes?
The interpreters tell me that they have difficulties in hearing you. So please pull out the mask.
Yeah.
Let's agree that who speaks will pull out the mask, otherwise for the interpreters it will be a nightmare. Okay. Please.
Should we say again about the pilot? No. Okay. Okay, the pilot project, as I said before, the acronym is Lights, Camera, Action. The title is Promoting Greece as a Film-Friendly Destination for International Productions. And by the title, you can understand that is related to filming industry. And the idea is to retain sustainability, to attract foreign investment for audiovisual production in Greece, international broadcasting in Greece, and by this way promotes different places of Greece, made it famous at international level, and attract tourism, and of course, as I said before, enhance the period of summer tourism, which is now 4 to 6 months to a 12-year tourism period. So the outputs we'll have by this project, it will be a tailor-made communication strategy and action plan and a sophisticated social media campaign. That's all for me. Thank you for being here with us, and thank you for your attention and your participation in the kickoff event of our project. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitris. I will speak in English because until when Dimitris will put on again the earphones. Okay, it's very interesting, and this is a very good example of what is our thematic project. We are working on with the Greek friends on the use of cinema culture as a tool of tourism development, cultural tourism development. So someone could think that we are competitors, because I know from how Dimitris is staring to me that they want to steal us the next James Bond movie that was filmed in Matera. But actually, this is the truly spirit of Interreg. We are interacting. We are trying to look at synergies. And from the past experiences, I can say that we need to reach a critical mass as a Mediterranean area for the attraction of cultural tourism. So the fact that we have new experiences in cinema industries, all together, Greeks, Italians and the other countries of the area is a plus, is not a factor of negative competition. So thank you again, Dimitris.
That's right, Biagio. This is what we say the networking-based new tourism products in our area with synergies. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Dimitris. So now we will continue. We can give the floor to our colleagues. I will use the list of the attendance list without special priority. I think that it is time to give the floor to the representatives of the Agency for Territorial Promotion of Basilicata, Ms. Stefania Bruni. And it is a pleasure for me to introduce her because of two reasons. The first is that they are our host today, so we thank the University of Basilicata for the location, but all the services and all the also the nice dinner we had yesterday night is from APT. And the second reason I'm happy to have Stefania here today is that APT is one of the partners with the most advanced preparation of the pilot project. That is the Basilicata Free to Move. That is, maybe it is not the best season now to speak about cyclotourism, but we will be ready for next spring. So please, Stefania, the floor is yours. Tell me when you want. I start the movie, the short movie, the short film that you asked. Ok, accenditi il microfono.
Ok. Sì, possiamo iniziare con un piccolo video.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stefania. I'm the person responsible for the marketing office for tourist promotion that was tasked with carrying out the pilot project. I wanted to show you the video because I believe you already had a chance to see that Basilicata has a natural tendency to host bike tourism, and this trend was already here. So we thought to work on this sustainable way of traveling, and we wanted to improve the sustainability of this project. This is where this project, pilot project, was born, Basilicata Free to Move, which came about after the pandemic. We created an application which is called Basilicata Free to Move, which is a sort of tutorial. While the tourists on their bikes are roaming around, they get information and about the paths, the heights, what can they see, the landscapes, the hotels, and all sort of services, or for example, repair shops. This, in order to make this product more appealing, we are almost done with it, and I'm tempted to say that we're almost finished it. We've been working on it for the past 10 months. We used various suppliers, and we notified all the bike hotels because they needed to fulfill some requirements and services and activities for all the activities that were well connected with cycling. We also had various suppliers, those who, for example, mapped. Just to mention that during COVID, it was tough going around 1,700 kilometers and mapping this area and then drafting the texts and translating them in 3 languages. The app is available in 3 languages. We visited some fairs, we communicated the app, and we already had 15,000 people who downloaded the map. And we know there's still a lot to do in front of us. Other actions have been carried out, and one of the most important is that of road signs. We created a system of road signs on our territory in order to indicate and have a correspondence between the apps and the road signs. So these are the immediate actions, but APT does not only handle the pilot project, but also it communicates the full project. So I would like to ask Mr. Parmentola, who is our main supplier, to quickly explain what we do.
Let me introduce Amodio Parmentola. He is the coordinator of a very nice team that is responsible for the communication, and he will tell us now the role of APT in this aspect of the thematic project. But before we move to the communication, I want to say something about this app, cyclotourism, because we as thematic projects have been discussing also with APT and on the possibility to integrate the Basilicata Free2Move network to the European, in particular Adriatic-Ionian network of cyclo routes, a network of national projects that starts from Greece and goes up to the to Slovenia, then goes down to the Adriatic, to the other side of the Adriatic, down till Calabria. And we hope that with the coordination of our project, thematic, the Basilicata Free2Move will become part of a European network of
Good evening, everyone. Given the time, I will start with a little test. If you have a piece of paper, or at least a virtual piece of paper, I'm going to ask you what are the 3 main things in your life. So you only have 10 seconds to think about it. While you're thinking, think about a second list. What are the things that you dedicate most time to during the day, your day? And the third list, what are the things that you spend most on? While the translators are doing their job, in an ideal life, these 3 lists should actually coincide and match. This is the same thing that happens in communication. If you ask an entrepreneur, what is the importance of communication, they will certainly mention the 3 first items. If you ask them about the time they dedicate to it or the money they spend on it, they're going to go to the last spots in the list. Thematic project does not have this view. the correct budget was allocated, and I can testify to the time that we dedicate to it on communication. But we are not here today to praise ourselves. We are trying to understand how we can improve this line of communication in our activity. And if we think about the instruments that we activated, we know how we can collaborate. We activated Facebook pages, Twitter pages. Certainly our organizations are looking at these pages and are sharing the posts that we posted. We, of course, were going to try to tag more when we publish content on our page so that we can repost them. We have newsletters. We have an important newsletter with 300 people, addressees in our newsletter list. So we cannot, we can do better than the 300 we have on our list. We have to transform them into 3,000. We, however, need to communicate to our partners and those who carry out communication to all the stakeholders, because we need to increase opportunities to see, as we call it in communication. How can we make sure that our target audience sees and intercepts the work that we're doing? We will launch a campaign sponsored by the social media to publicize the information that was mentioned here today. But what I want to ask from you is, let's have a network on this project so that in the list of the first 3 things we have thematic. Thank you. Good evening.
Ok, grazie. Buonasera.
Volevo solo dire.
I just wanted to say that we will be taking part in a trade fair event. Hopefully the whole system of trade fair events will be able to resume, and also abroad. We will try and identify the best event which is suitable for all the pilot projects, so hopefully we'll all be able to take part in those events. This is just the piece of news I wanted to share. Thank you. Thank you, Stefania. As a matter of fact, we have attached great importance to carrying out pilot projects which should not only be tests or experiments. Pilot projects should also be able to actually reach our market targets. We do not create for-profit products. Nevertheless, the products that we produce should attract our audience's attention. Let me thank the Mayor again for being with us. And now I would like to give the floor and again, not in order of importance, but I'll give the floor to Ms. Ivana Ostoic. She is speaking on behalf of the Municipality of Preko. Microphone, please.
I will greet you all today. Thank you for...
I won't be speaking in Italian because all of our guests speak English here. For those listening online, hello everyone.
Quelli che ascoltano online, saluti a tutti. I'm going to talk in English because I think it's much easier for all of the audience here to follow. And what I'm going to present you shortly, although you already know, is the Preko pilot, which we developed together with all of you. So as most of you had been to Preko, then you had already seen some results and what was our intention. So Preko is a small island community in front of Zadar, and what is particular there, that it has actually long history dating from similar to Matera, Neolithic and Paleolithic times. But Preko was actually first settlement of Romans, and on the island they started the tradition of olive oil. So what they did, and what also Apicius, and I presume that most of you know who was Apicius, the famous Roman writer, mentions that Preko was already in Roman times known for very good olive oil. So although we have very rich cultural history, and although the topic of thematic is not culture, we decided we are going to do a project that is going to promote natural beauties and natural things that we have on Preko, because we wanted to show and make that visible and improve on something that we already have. So Preko is predominantly family-based tourism. We have a lot of beaches there. There are 4 main beaches, and the topic for our pilot was that we do some innovative solution on one of the most famous beaches. If you remember, those who were there, when you come to the center of the place, then this is the beach called Yas. So what is particular there? It's beach just like any other, with sand. There are a lot of families during the summer, and what we presented and what we prepared in our pilot, so this is the beach you can see here, to make innovative beds, which are going to be also the charging stations, not only for cell phones, but also for bikes. Why for bikes? Because Preko is synonym for adventure tourism. There are currently more than 100 kilometers of bike lanes, so this is something what also Basilicata and Matera wants to develop. So there is the synergy, which were developed along 5 years, and also we have all of them signed. So what you said that you would like that the next step in your project is signalization. On Preko we already did it, and actually we also created a map for the tourists. But of course, after the biking, the idea is that they will come to the beach and they don't want to sit on the sun, but we presented the beds, which are going to have the charging stations and also which are partially covered so that they have a shade. Also, because we want to do more with the local community, idea was to develop the community-based beach management plan. Because typically in the Adriatic Sea, you have the beach, then you have somebody who gets concession, and the community is totally excluded. So we wanted that community understands why the management of the beach is important for them as well, especially as the tool of preservation and sustainability, because they don't want garbage on the beach, they don't want pollution, but actually this is something that can happen. So what we are going to start in the next phase after the holidays in January is the trainings and workshops with the local stakeholders to present them what is our idea and to engage them in the whole process. Because what we have found out from other projects, if they are not engaged, they feel it's just like, it's just another European project, and they don't understand what we are trying to achieve. So what we want, that they are part of the project, and actually that they get proud of what was done in the project, and also to see if there is some investment vehicle, how they can become part of the future beach management, not only on this beach, but also on the other beaches, and of course that we can then transfer maybe to other European regions, locations, etc. So this is the main idea behind our project. Thanks to the thematic, we got also the funding for the equipment. So part of that you had already seen what was done, and now in the next period we are going to finalize everything, and of course we'll be able to present to you on the final conference. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Ivana. The question of the management of the beaches like these in Preko are very relevant also in our region, as we had some occasion to discuss. We have the Ionian coast of Basilicata. That is the location for quite absolutely normal summer tourism, summer vacations, but that depends for its competitivity on an added value that we should find in the cultural resources and in the ecological ecological quality of these beaches, because the tourism in these minor destinations like Preko, like the Ionian coast in Basilicata, obviously suffer the competition of these huge industries of the northern Adriatic area. And if we don't find our niche of unicity, we will always suffer, and we will be the first to be pushed out of the market in cases like the crisis of pandemic. So very interesting, your contribution. So now let's give the floor to Ektor Tsatsoulis. With all of you, let me apologize for the pronunciation of the names. Ektor will represent the region of Epirus, the regional unit of Thesprotia. To be short, the beautiful region that is around Igoumenitsa, a place that for Italians is the first door of Greece in many occasions. And he will tell us about the role of this region, and I can say that there we had the first meeting in person of the project. So we started there a road that I hope will be long and fruitful. Please, Ektor.
Thank you, Biagio, for the kind words for the region, and thank you for being the first project partner visiting the region officially. We were very happy to be able to host the signature of the thematic network agreement, memorandum of understanding. Biagio was with us, and along with the authorities of the city and the stakeholders, and all of you, the partners, were joined us via Zoom meeting, which was a new way of working and collaborating all together. Thank you very much for your hospitality these days. Thank you very much also to the authorities of the city for hosting us, and I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate Matera for a very successful European Capital of Culture year. They gave a very good example to the rest of the countries and cities on how a small city can thrive through culture and, of course, improve the tourism industry. Thesprotia, which is a regional unit of Epirus, is a small part of Greece, but I think it's the closest part to most of the partnership, because it's the first getaway not only to Italy through Igoumenitsa's port, but through their land borders with Albania and the rest of the partners. Yes, just move because it's just general information about the organization, the existing and past experience. It's although a small region, it has implemented more than 100 projects, and hundreds more are being implemented. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. is a coastal regional authority, as we mentioned, but at the same time has a rich mountain area, which we intend, and it's already been used, and we intend to valorize furthermore. It has been a place for film industry, and this is where our pilot also will focus through the thematic project, Thesprotian Film Tourism Route, which will be a WebGIS platform that will illustrate the results that the film industry, attracted by Enterprise Greece, that Dimitris mentioned, they bring the investment, so we have new productions in Greece and in Thesprotia, and then we take the lead, and through the platform we show the locations to the tourists, to the visitors. So it is a niche, a specialized industry. I think Matera is very well aware of this industry, has a quite big experience with Sassi being filmed several times in the past, so we look up to Matera also for taking good examples and stealing maybe a couple of practices. But this is all about cooperation, so yes, we will do it. Furthermore, Rutgre is also work package leader for the strategy and developing some of the trainings within the project, thematic, and we're very happy being working so closely with the lead partner, the University of Basilicata, and being able to support furthermore this partnership. We are looking forward to the study visits that will be organized in Greece, and hope we will be able to host not just the partners, but some of the key stakeholders of each one of you, because as we discussed and as we concluded yesterday during our strategy and action plan workshop, the main thing that we need to do is exchange experiences and see each other's regions through someone else's eyes, because we cannot always identify what we have in our own regions. Something that sometimes looks familiar or something everyday to us, to a visitor, is something very exciting. And I think this is all about this project. Once again, Biagio and your team, thank you very much for the amazing hospitality. And it's a good way to close this very weird year with a physical visit in beautiful Matera. Thank you very much.
Could you turn on?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ektor. Yeah. It was a very strange feeling when we went to Thesprotia, to Igoumenitsa in June. It was the first trip abroad I had after this long suspension of the pandemic, and I'm sorry to say that in that occasion we had for the first time the feeling that things have changed forever. So we cannot expect anymore, as we hoped in the beginning of 2020, that tourism, that business could go back to usual. In June we realized that we are again on a road where traveling, where tourism will need discipline, sacrifices, commitment, and in some sense will be more rich of cultural meaning. We had started to think about tourism like fast food, fast consumption, without thinking I will go for a weekend to Prague or to Athens. Now we have to think twice, and then we might probably appreciate even more these trips. So thank you, Ektor. Now it's the turn of the Regional Development Agency of Zlatibor. I have four. Yes, Miroslav will participants. Violeta, Daniela, Vladana, that are here for this meeting. Please, Miroslav.
Okay, thank you, Biagio. At first, buonasera a tutti. Good evening to everyone, or in Serbian, dobro večer svima. I'm so glad to be here in this kick-off conference. Yes. As Biagio told you, here we are, I think, the numerous delegation. Here with me, there is Daniela Andrić, our technical support, Violeta Marković, our financial goodies, and our voice of reason, Vladana Bubarakic. It's the representative of travel agency from Western Serbia. When we are talking about RDA, about Regional Development Agency Zlatibor, we are founded, next slide, first slide. Okay. We are founded in 2002 by European Union as the Regional Center for Small and Medium Enterprise Development. In 2008, we are transformed and we are transformed into the Regional Development Agency, and now we are founded by 9 municipalities from Western Serbia and 1 association of entrepreneurs. Our mission as a Regional Development Agency is to support, next slide, Biagio, to support sustainable socio-economic development by creation or implement competitive communities sustainable for life, work and businesses. And we support development initiatives that improves regional cooperation and rural development. I can say also that we are the biggest regional development agency in Serbia among 17 agencies. And we have 5 sectors in the RDA. Sector for small and medium enterprise support, sector for agriculture and rural development, sector for tourism and sustainable development. We are, or I am from this sector. Sector for environment protection, you can turn next one, and sector for finance and administration. When you're talking about our role in this thematic project, I can say that our pilot action is also dedicated to the natural and cultural values of the Western Serbia. We are developing a multi-purpose digital platform for culture and nature heritage promotion. We call it NeoDigit because, firstly, we were focused on Neolithic open-air archaeological museum that we practically made a replica of some archaeological sites in the George or of Jetinja River by CBC project with Bosnia and Herzegovina, and practically this is the way to promote previous project and to continue to improve and promote this area. The main objective of our pilot project is to increase the visibility and accessibility to natural and cultural content of this gorge and to initiate the visits to the existing resources of the Jetinja River. Next one. The main focus is on the protecting the area of the river Jetinja Gorge and all its protected flora and fauna. Also, we are focused, next slide, to all these activities which we have resources to, which are developed or we have resources to develop in this area, like hiking and trekking, like kayaking, outdoor climbing, zip line, cycling, fishing, and any kind of other outdoor recreation. And I hope that when you visit Western Serbia by study visit, that you are going to try all of these activities in this area. And the special attention is paid to the some localities like the city beach. This area is very important for us living in Užice because it's very near the city center. Practically from the city center you're entering the protected area, and there is about 600 hectares of this area where you can do all these activities or visit some locations or cultural localities. So we have this Staparska spa. It's some recreation area for elder people. Or you can go to see some other natural values like Megara Cave, lake routes, etc. And the last but not the least, please, we have some cultural values that we are very proud of it. We have all electric power plant from 1900. So this is the first 1900. So this is the first hydroelectric power plant that was built and is making the electricity on Tesla principles. So today it also is making the energy, but it's mostly visited by visitors. We have this Užice old town. It's from medieval period, and the reconstruction of this old city is the first phase of reconstruction is done. And I hope that in the period when you come to Užice, it's going to be open for the visits. I told you about this archaeological open-air museum, Star Park. It is practically a replica of these archaeological sites, Velika and Mala Gradina. And yes, it's on the left, bottom on the left on this map. Yes. So also you have it on the poster, our poster. So we are expecting for it to be open in the first month of next year. So it's going to be open for the public. And we have some medieval churches and also replica of monastery Rujan from medieval times. So we are making this website in 2 languages, in Serbian and English, and it's going to be accessible worldwide. And we are trying to put some hotspots to be accessible in the canyon or in the gorge. So that's all about our pilot project, and I can say that I'm happy to be a part of this network, thematic network, because there are a lot of stories, a lot of best practices that we can learn. And I suppose that our collaboration is going to be good in the future, and that we are going to continue by new pilot actions in the future. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miroslav. With Miroslav, we have been discussing about the next study visits, and we really hope to be able to have not only the partners but also the stakeholders. And I hope from Basilicata to come to visit your region with representatives of the natural park, archaeological parks that are very important for the cultural heritage of Basilicata. So we will really be able to exchange experiences, because it is very difficult to not to explore. We don't want to use a word that could assume a negative term, to exploit these archaeological, these naturalistic areas. But for sure, these resources should be made sustainable from the economic and from the social point of view, because the simple preservation of the naturalistic values of the quality of the nature are not really sufficient to ensure survival of the preservation of these resources. So your contribution it's really interesting for our discussion today. So now I have to give the floor to a dear host from the Regional Development Agency of the, I will make a disaster with the pronunciation, Tsatsoulis. Then the owner will tell us the word. Andraž is here representing a project, another project of the Adrian program, Pronacul. We were told by the managing authority to cooperate, and we were very glad of this recommendation. So we first met in Bologna, right? And I'm very glad that from that indication that came even before the projects were finally approved. In reality, we have now Andraž here. So he will bring his contribution to the discussion, and he will remind us that THEMATIC is already a project where we have a cooperation among actors in many countries. But THEMATIC is also part of a system, a network of projects. In fact, THEMATIC is in a cluster of projects of the Adrian program that are 8 projects. And considering the number of partners of each project, we can say that with Andraž and others, we, through THEMATIC, we are in contact with 80, roughly 80 institutions all over the network of the Adriatic and Ionian region. And in this moment, in this very moment, we started 2 or 3 weeks ago, we are conducting a survey about the restart of cultural tourism in the next future after the pandemic. And we have already more than 60 answers from stakeholders and partners all over the Adriatic and Ionian area, and we will produce another report after the one we produced in the beginning of the project, where we will offer to stakeholders, politicians, experts, our recommendations, analysis for the future of cultural tourism in in the Adriatic Ionian region. So it's with very great pleasure that I give the floor to Andraž.
Thank you very much, Biagio.
Okay.
You have my presentation on the email. Nice greetings to all of you. It's really nice to see all of you, to collaborate between the projects, as already Biagio mentioned. It was long ago since we met before Corona, I think in October 2019, where the projects were still in the negotiation phase. As already Biagio told you, my name is Andraž Malovrh, and I work at the Regional Development Agency Zasavje. I'm a project coordinator of the Pronacul project, which is also on the same priority of the Interreg Adrian program. Now I'm going to say a few words about our project and, of course, also about cooperation with THEMATIC project. How did the idea for the development of our project come about? At the Regional Development Agency of Zasavje, we
I can see that the participants for our next moment of this moment are already in the room. If they can we can actually move about a little bit, and then we can have a little talk at a round table. I would like to invite those who are following us remotely, like Ms. Trevino said, if there are any issues or problems, because we try to improve things. So currently we're going to take a 5-minute break.
From Greece we have Ilia Chamber and the region of Ionian Islands, and also one partner from Slovenia, Entrepreneurship and Business Association Piran. So there is 12 partners and also 2 associated partners, one from Croatia and one from Slovenia. Next slide, please. Our hospitality, so I hope to
Don't worry, don't worry. Yes, yes. No, no, Welcome back. So, I would like to welcome Dr. Dimona, President of the
Sindacato Albergatori per Confcommercio.
Sindacato
Albergatori provinciale per Confcommercio.
Sindacato the Association of Hotels Entrepreneurs.
Now, I just wanted to give you the time to lower your mask.
And commerce.
Difficilissimo da tradurre.
Professor, se venire romano it's much easier. Professor of Environmental Economics. Professor... No, volevo darti il tempo di abbassarti la maschera. Agnello Crescenzi, professor at the University of Basilicata, but also in this moment director of the Agency for Agriculture and Innovation in Agriculture. Vitale Nuzzo, professor at the University of Basilicata. Is a researcher working with Professor Maria Fara Favia, that unfortunately...
Right. So we're going to have this brief round table about the outlooks for the cultural tourism system. What is cultural tourism? Well, cultural tourism is the type of tourism that is based on the natural, historical and archaeological heritage. We're going to look at the outlooks in the post-pandemic scenario. We have different points of view, clearly, and hopefully we will also have the time to listen to the contributions of those who are following the event in person here with us. Those who are following online cannot open their microphones, unfortunately, but they can make remarks or ask questions on the chat. We will be very happy to read what you have to say. At least this is the way we have to involve you in the discussion. So now I will give the floor to Ms. Limona. She represents the world of businesses. So currently, the organization she represents is really on the front line, and companies need all of our support. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor for me to take part in this roundtable, and it is also an honor to be the first to speak here at the University of Basilicata. Let me just say something. I have been informed of this beautiful thematic project when my point of view was different, because I represented the city of Matera as I was Councillor for Tourism in a very special year, namely the first year of the pandemic, 2020. I was able to talk to you all almost 2 years ago, and during our conversations we analysed, or rather we sort of envisioned, a potential future scenario. Some of the concepts we often refer to today had just been outlined back then. I'm referring to sustainability, for example. So we were conceiving a different form of tourism to that to which we're used to as a destination, as companies, and in terms of all the services revolving around tourism. The pandemic has clearly highlighted the need to be fully skilled and to have a vision for the future. The thematic project is visionary because it enables us to create networks which are based on strong principles. These principles will allow us to ensure a healthy and strong future for tourism. We saw that our tourist destinations had been flooded by tourists. We also saw that certain tourist locations had almost been excluded from the market. Also in our region, we also saw that there was a lot of supply, but it was not structured. What is the future for tourism today? Well, first of all, we need to face the emergency, and we have to look at the real sustainability in terms of numbers, in terms of the carrying capacity of the local areas. Well, we have to have a single vision that can bring together all the different networks. Clearly, we must focus on sustainability and on creating relations. It is clear to us all that we not only share the natural landscape, but all of our areas have a very strong cultural and historical past in common. So we really need to use this shared resource and make the most of it to enhance our excellencies. History will never follow the trends. The Free to Move project, for example, is an innovative project because it meets the needs of all tourists. History, which characterizes all of our destinations, is never-ending, and it goes hand in hand with environmental principles and with resources, and it can offer a lot of practical benefits. Regarding the entrepreneurial side of things, I think that entrepreneurs need public actions too, because otherwise they would not be able to create a network. Private organizations are less good than the public institutions when it comes to networking, and this is tragic. I think this is typical of Italy, and I hope so, because it means that there is room for improvement in all of the Mediterranean basin. Hopefully in our basin synergies are easier to create. Today, resisting is incredibly difficult. The only way we have to resist is to have a vision for the future, and we need to be able to measure them. We need to set ourselves some targets, and we need to achieve our goals. Only if we do this can we envision a future for our tourist that follows certain steps to achieve success. Therefore, the importance of these projects, or rather the importance of this specific project, is to promote research studies that can create points of references which we can use in a tangible and practical way. We often talk a lot, but we do not act. However, synergies between the public and private sector is essential. And we have the moral duty to involve the private sector more than we are doing already. Clearly, there are difficulties on the way. There are obstacles to overcome and efforts to make. Initially, this is a challenge, but over time, we get used to them and we can achieve great results. So what I really want to say is that we should go forward while always keeping in mind the goals that we have to achieve and the steps we have to take to get there. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor. Now, instead, I will give the floor to Professor Crescenzi, who's now leaving the academic world. We can't hear the speaker. Now we can, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. So he has already taken a step away from university. So as I was saying at the beginning, I'm the director of a regional agency for development and innovation in agriculture. In this first round of the table, I would like to tell you something about our vision. And then in the second round of the table, if possible, I would like to tell you a story which gives an example of a best practice we've been implementing for a number of years now. Regarding our visions and regarding the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic has basically confined us to our homes. It has isolated us from the rest of the world. But I wanted to focus on the opportunities that the pandemic provides us with. It would be useful to look at the things that have happened while looking on the bright side. Many things are happening in the world, of course, but I want to focus on a number of events and programs and social habits which we were sort of losing on the way. That's why we should look at the opportunities too that arise from the pandemic. The pandemic has highlighted a number of problems which already existed in our local communities and internationally. For example, we saw an outflow of tourists from the poorest areas to the richer areas. There's been a drain of people, rather. Richness is often measured in monetary terms, but there's more to it than that. The pandemic has highlighted this. There's much more to richness than wealth. This is one of the elements I would like us to focus on. And then I'd like to talk to you about one of our best practices. And then again, the pandemic clearly had very negative repercussions too. These repercussions are new to us, but they're not new to history. Many events occurred during the human history which also involved pandemics. But then pandemics go away. What's new today is that the scientific community is better prepared to face a pandemic than it was in the past. Even so, we are still trying to fully figure out all the aspects of a pandemic and all of its consequences and effects. That said, the main focus clearly is tourism, if I'm not completely wrong. And we should talk about tourism in a specific area. So tourism, or rather tourist flows, tended to choose elite destinations globally in terms of art, culture, or relaxation. So Florence, Venice, Rome were the typical destinations chosen by tourists. in Italy, for example. And tourists often tend to choose beach and sun resorts. But then another kind of tourism arose, and that's natural tourism. So natural destinations started to be chosen. Over the past few years, more natural landscapes have been chosen increasingly by tourists. So these more natural areas have lost a great number of population. They are typically considered to be poor areas. In some of the areas of our region, for example, half of the population living there migrated to richer areas. So they suffered a depopulation issue. The pandemic is leading us to rediscover these more natural areas. If we look at tourist flows in 2021, we will find out that even these minor destinations were actually flooded by tourists. Also, we are sort of going back to a slow type of tourism. We are used to a quick pace, but this is not the trend anymore. These minor destinations contribute to the well-being of mankind. So I would like to tell you how our Regional Development Agency is working in the local areas to implement various national and international projects. The name of the agency is ALSIA. ALSIA has been working for 10 years now in a marginal area of Basilicata. This area is located in the southern part of the region. In terms of its landscape, it's one of the most important areas globally. The Pollina Park is the largest national park, and it's part of UNESCO's World Heritage. In this park, over the past 10 years, we have been working with the local people and we've been able to attract many people from other parts of Italy too, as visitors. In the second round of the table, I will tell you what we did more specifically. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Crescenzi. I am very happy to see Professor Colonna here with us. I hadn't announced you, Professor, because I thought that you wouldn't be able to come here. Would you like to take the floor, though? How many minutes do I have? So I don't even have a watch on me, so I can't keep track of time. Should I keep the mask on or not? No, you can take it off. It's easier for interpreters to hear you. So thank you very much for inviting me. Is it working? Yes, it is. So, cultural and natural tourism, sustainable development, and Adriatic-Ionian region. These are the key terms. We have sort of grown used to the idea, thanks to Matera, European Capital of Culture 2019, that tourists can be defined as temporary inhabitants. So I like to think that projects focusing on tourism also go to the benefit of the inhabitants of a given area. Those of us who live in this area for a longer period of time and in a more stable way really need to get to know the area where we live. We need to become familiar with its riches, with its culture. But why do we have this need? Is this just to be more educated and to know more about the area where we live and that's it? Well, no. This is necessary to identify the tools that we can use to become more sustainable. So all of the efforts that we're making today should be addressed at this great challenge, at this revolution that we need to bring about. This revolution has to do with sustainability. Sustainability is not a single concept. It has various aspects to it. There are steps to be taken to transition towards sustainability. Oftentimes, sustainability sort of entails some deeper changes which cause difficulties or unease, and these changes often have to be very fast. And clearly, change always causes difficulty to people. Then difficulty is also a multifaceted term. In the 2030 agenda, we can identify a very strong idea or principle. It may seem like a very romantic idea, which provides for no one to be left behind. Well, there's an approach to sustainability that puts communities at the center. At this university, we do have communities of knowledge in mind. They can also be referred to as communities of practice or communities of skills. But what does this have to do with tourism and with it being an opportunity for the so-called temporary inhabitants, including those who spend just one day in our areas? So they spend just one period of their life in this area. So how can they benefit from sustainability? How can we help them get to know better the cultural and natural heritage of an area? So culture, science, nature. Are key terms. And our approach to these three concepts should be based on dialogue. We need to use our critical thinking, culture, science, our relationship with nature should be interpreted using our critical thinking. So the experience of a tourist, whether they spend just one day here or a longer period of time, can be about developing an individual's critical thinking. So a dialogue involves comparing different points of view. This morning we took a stroll, we took a guided tour of the town and the landscape, and we exchanged ideas about the landscape. This very simple approach, which entails visiting the landscape and sharing the different points of view, enables us to see how an object can change when it is looked at from different perspectives. So a place can be interpreted through narratives, such as its history or other types of narratives. A narrative marks the destiny of a place, and we can sort of orient this destiny. We can choose it. Therefore, it is important to become aware of the fact that narratives should be contextualized. There's no individual narrative of a situation. There are various interpretations. Data can be interpreted in one way or another. If we take Matera as an example, Matera is associated with a slogan. In the 1950s, it was regarded as a national shame. It represented that part of the country that was coming out of the war and had to make a great effort to rebuild everything. So there was great development work that needed to be done. There was extreme poverty that needed to be eradicated. And so all of these things lead to a project for the town, a project to enhance it. And different people see reality in different ways. The reality was the same, but the way it was being looked at was different. So there were intellectuals, such as Mr. Pasolini or Mr. De Martino, an anthropologist, who simply interpreted reality in their own unique way and based on their own unique perspective. So that town, which was the emblem of deterioration and degradation, was actually the symbol of a world that was disappearing, and that was the agricultural world, the world of peasants. And so new possibilities opened up for the town. A new future was now enabled. And the rocks of Matera were then included in the list of UNESCO's World Heritage until it became the European Capital of Culture. So the community started believing in this new perspective. That's why having a new perspective on reality actually changes its destiny, the destiny of a place, of a specific place. So visiting a place can be an opportunity for a tourist to understand that we all have our own unique perspectives.
This is fundamentally necessary because we're going to start to confuse science, the science which is made of a dialogue, and the culture is made of dialogue and debate, comparison between perspectives, because they need to be readjusted, repositioned, and choosing the better choices. Then we're just going to move apparently on a different front, that of the point of view of an economist for natural resources, that is Romano, we can look at the heritage of natural resources as a basis on which to build as a sustainable development of tourism. Unfortunately, one of our partners is not present due to these difficult times, from Slovenia, but I'm sure they're watching us online. At the heart of their work, of the pilot project, they have the tourism in a natural area. Now I'm going to give the floor to Professor Romano. Thank you, Biagio. I'm going to try to focus my attention not on all the natural resources, because that would require too much time, and what would be the advantages for humankind of use of natural resources. I will try to focus exclusively on what the forests can provide. The green gold, not in the sense of using wood, but all the sectors, and including tourism, that can be created from natural resources, and the forests in particular. In Italy, it is a heritage which is very little used. 20% of the Italian territory is covered by forest. We have 365,000 meters of forests, hectares of forests. Forests offer goods like wood or game or soft fruit, but also goods and parts for the ecosystem, which are important for the common good. So it's a common heritage of recreational activities that can be carried out in the forests. And other functions are connected to forests, like the climate adjustment and the protection of the soil erosion and protection, biodiversity. And among these, ever more important, there's an economy of sorts, quite vivacious, for the cultural ecosystemic services. I would call them social cultural services. These are multiple services, quite varied, and they can create attractiveness and revenue, entrepreneurship where forests lie. Let's not forget that forests are the internal areas, the isolated ones, where there are issues with social cohesion, depopulation, and human presence. So they become particularly important to focus our attention on them and develop those territories which are based on the sustainable use of forest resources. I'm going to talk briefly on the ecosystemic services connected to culture, the open-air museums. They have been present for many years in our region, the Grangia forest, where theater activities are carried out. In the past 2 years, due to the pandemic, this activity has been a bit put aside. Then other activities, social cultural ones in the forests, are the training activities. Bird watching, sports activities in the woods, and I don't want to make you smile, but in various parts of Europe, the forest funerals are being carried out, which are quite interesting experiences that apply entrepreneurship activities in a sustainable way in the forest. And everything is connected to physical and psychological wellness, like the forest baths, forest therapies. A few days ago, I heard on a national radio that there was a person who accompanied people in the forest and explained the trees, made the people touch the trees. That engenders an entire economy connected to the forests. Now, we said that forests are goods and ecosystemic goods. And it is the market that puts everything in the motion and creates a certain use of these goods. When we identify goods as private ones, conversely, when we have social, cultural, ecosystemic goods, are public goods. Hence, the public institution and the state must pitch in to favor their development. How? Through compensation, projects, and public intervention measures leading to a resilience of the forests and having microsystems and systems within our territory. How can we favor? I'm terribly sorry if I'm going so fast, Biagio. How can we favor activities connected to social, cultural activities in the forests? Privately, one of the most important factors is innovation, fantasy, sort of, or innovation, creativity. When it regards the process or the product or the organization. Various realities exist in Europe which are quite innovative. For example, the mushroom tourism in Spain. Tourist paths were created connected to mycology. The dark sky park in Scotland to admire the sky. Adventure parks that are spread around Europe and the world. And closer to home, in the Parma province, the World Championship of Mushrooms, connected to the research within the forest resources of the mycology sector. What can the private sector do? They can offer a quality product which can come from a sustainable management of the forests, and to communicate this to the users and the consumers. There are certification schemes for forests that certify to a sustainable use of forest. The PFC, the European Forest Certification, EFC, which has certified 395 million forests around the world. Through this procedure, also products can be certified. Another issue. The private sector must somehow promote these activities in the forest by creating networks, like the forest communities in Scotland or in Wales. And they must lobby to motivate those who make the decisions to step in. We are in a full-blown pandemic nowadays. I hope that we are at the end of an economic crisis. We have tried to recover from these economic crises through the national plans of resilience and recovery. Italy has received consistent financing for green transition and green economy, which can favor this type of activity. We have 59 million for the Italian national plan. But if we look at forests only, we can say that even despite the fact that Italy has 40% of its territory covered by forest was not financed. Where forests are consequences of other investments in Italy, same situation in other countries in Europe where there are specific measures for forests and providing ecosystemic services. Thank you, Professor. I'll give the floor to Professor Nuzzo. Grazie, Presidente.
Misure specifiche per l'enfatizzazione della fornitura dei servizi ecosistemici e di quelli socioculturali in particolare.
Grazie, professore. La parola al professore Nuzzo.
Grazie.
Thank you, President. Five minutes. I'll try to talk in English, so I'm very happy to be invited with you. I wrote some few notes just to take a short index of my speaking. To be invited at this kickoff meeting and share with you some thoughts about biodiversity, in particular fruit tree biodiversity. I think that we are, perhaps I am the oldest man in this room, and I think that we are the last witness of the last part of the 20th century. This century, the 20th century, was named by Eric Hobsbawm like the short century. This century goes from 1914, 20 June of 1914, when the Francesco d'Asburgo was killed in Sarajevo, to 1991. In this century, our parent passed to us the baton from knowledge, empirical knowledge, to navigate through scientific knowledge. So we start to navigate from handmade or handwork to digital work. I don't know if some of you know this object. This was one of the large memory diskette in I registered this diskette in 23 of February 1989. After 2 years, the short century will ended. Then we start to use this one. And then we start to use some very large memory card diskette, and then we start to use some of this. So we, for many economical sectors, we go from large to small. But not in agriculture. In agriculture, we went from small and tools like hoe. The main weight of an hoe was 3 kilograms. From 5 kilograms, we now use very large tractors. And this changed a lot with the agricultural organization, farmers organization, landscape organization. In few farms, we found some circularity from fruits to animals, to men, and then again from fruits to other things. So we think that biodiversity and fruit tree biodiversity was a very good opportunity to explore the biodiversity not only in the biological terms, but also in cultural terms, in heritage terms, in linguistic terms. Each fruit, we call this project Fruit di Casa, that means home fruit, some specific fruit that we can find only in some few homes of the village. And that, oh, sorry, just 1 minute, and then I will finish. And we try to preserve not only the fruit, the biological term, but also the uses, the use of the fruit, and we try to perform un percorso.
Professor Nuzzo scared me because I thought he brought his presentation on a 5-inch device. With the work that was carried out with Professor Favia, we are brought back to the resources of the rural territory. More than anything, it's not the rural territory, but the landscape itself that, in particular, we must distinguish between agricultural landscape, which is the modern concept coming from the farming land, which was the more traditional concept. This definition must be then distinguished from the urban landscape, which are two separate perspectives on the system. The urban landscape was created from the rural one because people started moving towards the cities, and they created what ultimately was the urban landscape. But the rural landscape is the old traditional one, and it represents what the farmers did in the past. They transformed the agrarian landscape to make it useful for their survival by producing food. The agrarian landscape and the farmer within this landscape transformed the territory in a sort of genesis. Think about the stone walls and the terracing that were used to deal with natural factors. If you think about landscape, they are different one from the other, even they seem alike. I don't know if you traveled from Potenza to Metapontino. You will find 3 different types of landscape which are completely different. You're going to have mountains, continental sort of landscape in Potenza, where you have farms and wheat cultivation, and then you have the Grassano area, which is in the midst, and it's almost a desert. You have olives and wheat. And then in Metapontino area, in 80 kilometers, you have 3 different landscapes. In Metapontino, you have a completely Mediterranean landscape with intensive fruit tree cultivations, which are different from the other 2. When you travel, you fundamentally mustn't pack your suitcase, but just look outside your window. This landscape was shaped by the environment and by humankind through the century. The landscape was put into value with different policies, whereby the farmer was considered to be a sort of guardian of the land. They had to watch the territory in case of fires, and had to bear in mind what was the territory that he had in front of him. With more updated policies, in 1999 and 96, with the 2000 agenda, specific measures were introduced that were referred specifically to the landscape. And nowadays, in the 2007, 2013, and 2014-2020 program for the European Union, there's a direct or indirect consequence. I won't bore you with the details, but Measure 4, for example, the renovation of rural structure, has a direct consequence on the landscape. And then Measure number 10 for the preservation of the biodiversity. This, again, a direct consequence. Measure number 7 regards the renovation of tourist centers that can be relevant for rural areas that are completely abandoned. The concept of landscape has entered in the programmation periods for the European Union. Within these programs, the landscape has transformed in time and has become culture, so to speak. When we talk about landscape, we say culture, agrarian culture, farming culture. I shall stop here because in the second step of my speech, I will talk about the various types of rural tourism. Thank you, Antonio. We don't have a lot of time left because we can't take advantage of the strength of those who are watching us, but I would like to create a point of contact from all the speeches. We also have an interpretation problem who have a limited time at our disposal. Each of you has said something very interesting about various dimensions of cultural tourism. Now, we have some time to spend on a question. What in your specific sector or field or research or enterprise, what do you think has definitely changed due to the pandemic? In the field of business is that we can't be dominated by numbers anymore, but we are those who need to dominate what creates flow. This is certainly something that can be touched and seen, because a more modern and perspective on tourism showed us that all tourist destinations were welcoming and full stop. Now we need to understand niches, reference targets, and go towards this direction, because the old idea of everything works, that's not okay. From a business point of view, there's no revenue. From an environment point of view, there's a vicious circle that does not bring benefits to a certain territory. That's why this is particularly relevant to see how to identify niches. That's why cultural tourism needs to be consistent and has to have various niches. That's why I talked about the quantification of revenues, because otherwise we lapse into the errors of the past. Thank you. I will take advantage of your presence and experience to ask a rough question. At the beginning of the pandemic, we talked about Air, Me and Me. Airbnb, the interpreter apologizes. As the first victim of the pandemic, because it was not given any grants or subsidies from the state. What do you think about it now? I had no doubt that Airbnb could be impacted. Some accommodation have closed and some will survive, just like it happened in other parts of the world. Airbnb has survived the crisis better, and Airbnb benefited from the social distancing rules because, as they were not hotels, they managed to offer in accommodation facilities an economic intervention was needed from entrepreneurs in order to sanitize their hotels, for example, while for Airbnb was just business as usual. Consequently, this alternative channel, if I may repeat, it's the part that survived, and it wasn't such a slaughterhouse. Luckily, small entrepreneurs were hit less badly than it was thought. Consequently, the sector is actually stronger. I have always been against competitiveness between hotels and non-hotels because there are different accommodation forms. It's like talking about sea tourism or cultural tourism. They're different. We know that people spend 77 euros per day. Cultural tourists, 100, and restaurant tourism, even more. That's why Airbnb nowadays is actually strengthened and more aware and certainly willing to improve some sectors because they understood that this could be an exclusive sort of accommodation and not a secondary one. So I agree with the professor. Pandemics or great revolutions have an upside, a silver lining connected to rebirth, because had we not had this sort of break, we wouldn't be speaking about reinventing tourism. We would still be passive subjects and welcoming tourists. I would like to refer to what you were saying. Just to finish this narrative, the non-hotel tourism has built around itself the rural tourism. Up until a few years ago, it was completely unknown to the masses. It was a niche sort of tourism, and with the pandemic, has become something which appeals to the masses. And we see how it was built. We see what are the strengths that were applied in this time of need, that come from and derive from something that was built in this sector, and it's not a unique example at national and international level. At national level, there are some laws for protecting diversity and protecting what, for example, monumental trees or some products, the agro-foods which are typical, were within a model of protection and development. They need to be projected so that they can develop further on. In this territory that was at the outskirts of society, or just something for the elites that loved nature, something exceptional was born. Thanks to the work that was carried out for many years, 15 I imagine, for what was the discovery of these cultural resources and agro-foods and biodiversity resources. How did this rediscovery happen? It's not enough to say that we have a certain fruit tree that belonged to the past. Our point of view to nowadays needs the certainty of why this plant is different from the others. And we need tools to be able to differentiate through molecular analytical research, like radioactive carbon, that can tell us that this tree, for example, a certain fruit tree, pears, just to give you an example, or olives, that have centuries, that are centuries old. Why is this tree the crux of our territory? Because it tells a story that has been enshrined in the centuries of this tree, a pear or an olive. Is it enough? No. Because through this biodiversity and this tree, what were the products created in the past from these trees and plants that we rediscovered and we fostered? The agro-food, which is traditional, that we have characterized, rediscovered through its history, and we recorded it through historical documentation. If we go beyond 25 years, we start to tell a story, a culture that belongs and it's rooted in a specific area. Is it enough? No, because while we keep it in a cage or a crystal ball, it's not enough. How did we make it circulate? We created some biodiversity itineraries. What are they? Next week we will present an example the farmer, the custodian who protects this tree and this essence of the plant.
And so the plant is grown again. And this is part of a bigger picture. There's someone who wants to rediscover this plant. So the plant is a primary product which provides a secondary product which needs to be processed for our tourists. So there are companies processing the secondary products, for example, companies making jams using apples. And tourists get to experience these things locally, but tourists want ready-made things, and so we lead the tourists. We invite the tourists to eat in our restaurants, and our restaurants use the products that we produced locally. So there are a number of players involved in creating the best experience for tourists. And also, our produce is then displayed in farms which are then used for teaching activities. Only in 2021, twice as many tourists visited our local areas if compared to the pre-pandemic period. Now we really have to speed up because we're running out of time. I would like to ask a question, and then you will be free to answer or not. So I'll ask Angela a question. So you talked about Airbnb. Probably Airbnb came out stronger from the pandemic. What about cultural cities now? It had been told that Airbnb was actually harmful for cultural cities, right? Yes, please come closer to the microphone, yes. So there was an acceleration of digitization. We were already using apps before the pandemic. And for tourism, apps are becoming increasingly important. What are the risks and the potential that I identify in using apps? Let's look at risks first. The first risk is that app may become the only solution. If we want to compare apps to food, well, when we cook something, we can use a tool where you just put the ingredients in, and then this tool mixes them up and cooks the dish. Many people use this tool because it makes it faster to cook a meal. But here in the south of Italy, we really love eating, and it's sort of a ritual. Cooking a meal is something more complex than just mixing ingredients. So there are projects that are thought to go to the benefit of tourism and that use technology. And a lot of funds go into technology, but very few funds go into content, as though content were secondary, as though algorithm were enough to achieve the result. Well, I think this is very dangerous as an approach. This ready-made approach is a risk. And the second thing we see, which is also a risk, is a drive towards isolation. However, technology can open up amazing opportunities. As a matter of fact, technology can contribute to making sense of things. It can teach people how to use data to create something. Today we can shoot a film using our smartphones, for example. So we should use technology to learn together how to build the meaning of places rather than using technology for much emptier purposes.
Costruire insieme il senso dei luoghi, del patrimonio, eccetera, piuttosto che quello di isolarci, buttare tutto dentro nel bimbi e avere la pappa pronta. Grazie.
Grazie Angela. Professor Romano, dobbiamo fare quasi una domanda sì-no. Tutte queste interessantissime forme di turismo, e io adesso dico anche ai partner, I would like to say to all partners that we will circulate the presentation, Professor Romano.
Base della sua esperienza, ci sono stati cambiamenti positivi in questo settore durante la pandemia oppure no? Well, if I were to think exclusively of all the potential of a pandemic in terms of providing services, well, I might cynically create a slogan, which is, come and breathe in the forest. That said, the pandemic has changed our lives dramatically. I'm not talking about the deaths or the risk or fear. I'm talking about something else. I want to take a look at our country globally. I don't know what the situation is like in other countries, but I think something has arose very clearly during the pandemic, and that is that science cannot be questioned. There are experts studying a given topic, and they cannot be questioned because they are the experts. Before the pandemic, anyone questioned anything. Before the pandemic, anything I could find on my smartphone was viable. Today, that's no longer the case. Clearly, there are still skeptical people. But in every field, what experts say goes. Now, managing a tourist destination is very complicated and requires a lot of efforts. We are currently governed by the so-called Next Generation EU, which will also be in the foreground in the next few years. This is like a new Plan Marshall, or Marshall Plan. It is based on the New Green Deal, and the New Green Deal is based on a number of strategies focusing on biodiversity, for example, and focusing on a new strategy for forests, for climate, and the factor for strategy too. These are the pillars at the basis of the European policies that will need to be implemented to come out of the crisis. These policies focus on the environment as a whole, where we live. So mankind and the environment are one thing. And if you think about it, this pandemic was caused by a spillover of virus from an animal to mankind. And we have many variants of the virus too. So it is important to take care of the environment. And if natural resources are managed in a sustainable way, we can create jobs, we can set up new businesses, and we can also communicate our careful management of natural resources better. We have plenty of natural resources in our areas, especially in the more marginal.
Occupazione, impresa e comunicare la nostra gestione oculata delle risorse naturali per attirare poi soprattutto nei territori dove le risorse naturali ci sono, che ripeto sono i territori più marginali, che hanno fatto della loro marginalità un problema per tanti anni, oggi diventa un fattore di sviluppo economico, se ben gestito.
Thank you, Mr. Professor Romano. So I should from the bottom of my heart, thank Professor Nuzzo and Dr. Gatto for their generosity. They are renouncing to their intervention, but because I have a very, very last limit for the interpreters that I would like to thank very, very much for their work at 6:15. So I will close now the round table. I will thank everybody for participating, the audience for the patients, the partners for the time they spent so in attentively and so keen to the success of this event. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to who is representing now the University of Basilicata, Professor Romano. You are the senior representative of the University of Basilicata, so thank you to University.
Non per età.
No, non per età. Thank you to the University of Basilicata. Thank you to you all. And for sure, the Arrivederci is to the meeting in the spring, and to all the participants to this round table, this is also an invitation, because in the spring we will have the mid-term meeting of THEMATIC in Slovenia, a beautiful area of Slovenia, and we really hope to have you all there to continue our discussion.
Il vostro lavoro. Passate una buona serata.
Interpreters that I cannot mention by name because I cannot see them, but thank you for their work, and arrivederci. Enjoy the night in Matera for those that will stay. Have a safe trip for those that will leave tonight. Ciao.